Shalom, shalom, mishpocha. Welcome to another edition, Torah Tidbits. This is Torah Tidbits number 3, and in Hebrew it is called Lech Lecha, which means to go out. And it is taken from Bereshit, Genesis 12, all the way to chapter 17, verse 27. Today we're just going to be focusing on chapter 15. We see in the first 6 verses that God promises Avraham a son, and that he will be the first of many in a line, and he will eventually become as countless as the stars of the sky and as the sand of the seashore. There's a lot of symbolic meaning in that their destiny is to reach towards the heavens, to reach towards the stars, that ultimately their destiny is heaven, but yet they will be lowly like the dust of the earth, and people will basically walk over them and not think anything of them. And we've seen that all throughout history, through the Inquisition, Holocaust, etc. Now, in verses 7 through 20, God enters into a covenant with Avraham. And this type of covenant was very commonplace among the people of that region at that time. God, in essence, is acting like a king, and Avraham like a submissive vassal or a conquered vassal, but really it's more akin to an ally. Basically, they hack up various animal parts and split them wide open. And as a flame, in the manifestation of a flame, God walks between the parts. And in so many words, basically the covenant is this: may what happened to these animals happen to me if I fail on my end of the covenant. But if you read and you notice that Avraham doesn't participate in this, he ends up falling asleep. And it's interesting. Why is this? Because God knew. God knew, because Avraham was a mortal, that he could not keep up his end of the bargain with God. So God allowed Avraham not to participate in the covenant, so as he would be responsible to keep the covenant to a T, because Avraham would have failed, because he's human, because he's imperfect, and he would end up being destroyed, and the covenant would have been useless. So God says, look, I know you can't keep your end of the bargain, even though you want to so desperately, and that's okay. I'm going to keep your end of the bargain for you. So in essence, that's kind of what it means. Now, breaking it down a little further, verses 13 through 16, during Avraham's nap, God gives Avraham a prophecy through a dream, and he sees the whole history of the Hebrew people. Everything from the bondage in Egypt to the Exodus itself. And so he knows his people are going to go through hardships, but that they're going to have a great deliverance. And we end up seeing that, and we celebrate that during the Passover season. We celebrate the Exodus. Verses 17 through 20, God also gives Avraham the dimensions of the Promised Land. And if you read carefully those dimensions in verses 17 through 20, you'll see that it has nothing to do with the dimensions of the state of Israel today. The state of Israel is nothing more than a strip of land about the size of New Jersey. And they are destined, and they are called to have so much more. And eventually we will conquer and occupy the entire land, especially when Mashiach returns. But because of our sins, because of not keeping totally with the covenant of Torah, and because many of us are still in exile, and the exiles from Assyria haven't returned to the land, these and many other reasons are why we do not have the entire land of Israel. Besides, Israel right now is a secular state. I'm glad it exists, but it's still a secular state nonetheless. And we won't occupy the entire land until Mashiach comes and eradicates all the enemies of the Hebrew people. So that's just kind of the long and short of Torah portion number 3. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got something out of it. I hope when you read it for yourself, you get much, much more than what you get from the Torah Tidbits. So fare thee well. Shabbat Shalom and Shavua Tov Mishpocha. See you next time.